Party people, fantasy fanatics, and degenerate gamblers, welcome back inside the lab. That is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, alongside your boy Big Flip Livingstone and my co-host Mr. Steel Roden. Thursday's episode is jam-packed, people, full of news, injuries, suspensions, fantasy fallout, and of course, big-time bets. Let's get this money.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard the music and you know what time it is. It is time for the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Thursday edition. Pumped up for this episode, Steel. It is jam-packed, full of news. We have serious injuries, suspensions, return from injuries. This all means it's time to wake up and tap in, people. Speaking of which, thank you for making us your first listen. Every single day, we are here to try and walk you through the entire fantasy season, Monday to Friday. Steel and I got your back with all the latest news, insights, and more. So thank you so much for all of that love. We see you and appreciate you. Today's episode, people, is jam-packed. We're going to get to the big-time bets. We're going to get to some more of these players returning from injury very soon, Steel. But we got to talk about, I think, first off the jump, what happened to Evander Kane, a very important piece to the Edmonton Oilers and a very important piece to any fantasy team. And this is a scary injury as well. That's number one. You were texting me last night as soon as it happened. You were watching that game live. And, you know, he's on LTIR. There's this room now for the Edmonton Oilers to juggle. But more importantly, he takes a serious injury on the wrist, getting slashed by Patrick Maroon's skate. He's now done for 3 or 4 months. Let's talk about the play. Let's talk about the injury. Let's talk about what you're going to do to try and fill this Evander Kane hole. Let's kick it off, my friend. I'm excited to hear what you have to say today.
Yeah, it was a scary thing to see. And, you know, we've seen this in the past multiple times. You saw it with Ilya Mikheyev a couple years ago or just last year, getting a skate blade to the wrist, which sets him back 3 to 4 months, and you have to have surgery on it. It was very scary to see. And, you know, at first glance, you couldn't really tell what happened because it looked like an innocent play. He gets hit, he falls down on the ice. Yep. Next thing you know, he's concerned, he's worried, he's skating right off the ice, right down the tunnel, asking for help, like screaming help 3 times because it was that severe, and he realized that bad. And even Pat Maroon, like, he looked down, he saw Kane, and he starts barking at the bench, telling them to stop playing and make sure that he was taken care of. But right when you saw, you know, the incident and the blood coming out, it was a scary sight. And, you know, I wish him all the best. You know, it seemed like he was taken care of right away. He went right to the hospital and had immediate surgery to fix, obviously stitch up or fix the problem on his wrist. But yeah, it was a scary sight, and it's a big blow for the Edmonton Oilers and obviously fantasy owners out there. But that's not the big concern. It's obviously about Evander Kane's health. The second thing is obviously the Edmonton Oilers and fantasy owners out there who have Evander Kane. The fact that he's out 3 to 4 months is detrimental. He's got 13 goals on the season. He's a guy who does pretty much everything for the Edmonton Oilers, 50 shots on net, 50 hits as well. So he's huge for banger leagues. And I know that the Oilers have McDavid and Draisaitl, and those two are probably the best 2 players in the league right now. But this is going to hurt the Oilers team. And, you know, they're 8-6-0 on the season. They don't have a great record as of right now. And this is going to set them back a big amount. So it's a big loss for the Oilers and definitely fantasy owners out there.
I look at this a few different ways, Steel, because all of a sudden now, you know, Klim Kostin, Mattias Janmark are called up from the Condors in the correlated move. Now, all of a sudden, though, the strength of this team takes a hit. We knew the blue line and the goaltending was going to have to be propped up by this amazing offense that they could rolling at least 2 very elite lines. And now, all of a sudden, he's also a big energy guy, Steel. He's a locker room kind of guy. You and I were talking a little bit about Johnny Gaudreau and how he has the opposite effect on his teammates. I think Evander Kane is that player that fires up his teammates. He gets you going with a big hit, maybe even a fight, a big-time goal. He is that prototypical power forward. You mentioned the fantasy hole, the stats that he puts up as well. Those are the two ways I'm taking it. Is we're going to get to the waiver wire in a couple of episodes. We're going to talk about specifically how you can fill in the hole for Evander Kane, because right now things are going to be interesting. We don't really know what the Edmonton Oilers are going to do. They're going to have to get creative here with shuffling some of these lines. So we're going to have eyes on what's happening in Edmonton to make sure we know where we're jumping in terms of replacing it. But number two, Steele, the defense has been kind of shaky. The goaltending very shaky in Edmonton. And now all of a sudden that strength of what this team has had takes a serious hit with Evander Kane. If I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan, I'm very, very concerned. The last thing I wanted to mention very quickly about this is this frees up some LTIR cap space for the Oilers to work with. They are now working with $4.8 million in LTIR. Shout out to Cap Friendly for the number, because I'm not doing that math on my own. But now I almost expect, given how much we know that Edmonton Oilers are in win now mode, let's be very clear about them trying to impress and commit Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid long-term. They need to win now. So I expect them to be sniffing around to try and make a move, because 3 to 4 months is a long time, Steele. Let's talk one more injury before we get to break, because we have suspension news. We have players returning from injury. We also have some breaking injury news. Freddy Andersen is out day-to-day as well. We're going to take a look at that. Valeri Nichushkin, an important piece, another important fantasy piece for a lot of GMs out there, Steele. He is now out for 1 month. He had ankle surgery. No, he was out for the last couple of games. I believe he last played against the Rangers on the 25th. So this is another hit, though, to the Colorado Avalanche, a team that we've also seen another chink in their armor. I don't know what you think about this, because Landeskog is out, Nichushkin's out, Kadri, we know they lost in the offseason. Again, all of a sudden, the strength of this team starting to look a little soft around the edges, Steele. So I don't know what you think about all that.
Yeah, soft to say the least. And what I've been reading over the last couple of hours, and even last night, it looks like Logan O'Connor is going to be getting a ton of Nichushkin's minute up in the top 6 forward group. Now Alex Newhook has not been great this season. He's only got 2 goals, 1 assist to show for it. But you talk about filling a hole, especially for guys like Nichushkin and Evander Kane. And I'm going to be frank with everyone out here. You can't fill the hole. You can't fill it. Those guys are elite players, especially Nichushkin for the Avalanche. He's an absolute force to reckon with on the power play. He had 5 power play goals, 7 power play points overall, 12 points on the season. But guys like Evander Kane, especially out for 3 to 4 months, you can't fill that hole with the production that he puts up. That's why taking a look at the waiver wire every single day or every other day, picking up those guys who are playing in those advantageous matchups, like you mentioned so many times.
Yeah.
Like we talked about Brock Nelson, who I mentioned on the waiver wire. He has 3 points in his last 2 games. He was owned 25% on Yahoo. So, there's guys out there, you're not able to fill those kind of holes, but every single game, every single day, or every other day, you have to be checking the waiver wire, because that's the only way you're going to be able to fill the hole for up to a month or up to 3 to 4 months.
7 goals, 5 assists for Nichushkin, tied for the team lead in goals. You just mentioned it. It's going to be hard for you to fill these holes on your fantasy squad, but these are very serious and detrimental injuries to the overall success of these clubs. So buyer beware when you're laying some bets on some of these teams over the next couple of weeks as they deal with this influx and rotation of their top lines. That's a fact that you have to keep your eye on. Another one that you have to keep your eye on, betonline.net. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at betonline.net, your number one source for sports betting, info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and even esports. They have it covered at betonline.net. And if you love podcasts, other than this network, you can find all of those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix at BetOnline. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your next listen, though, your second listen after the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, go check out Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. They're doing everything right over there. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast platforms. And Flip, before we get more into the conversation about injured players and returning players, I do want to mention, obviously we can't predict the future and everything, but 3 weeks ago, when I was doing the buy low, sell high episode, Valeri Nichushkin was a part of that buy, sell high, segment in that episode. So obviously can't predict the future, but that would have been a good time to trade him out and get some return, especially for a guy who's now injured. But nonetheless, Flip, where do you want to go with this? Do you want to go to the returning defenseman or the injured goalies we have?
I would actually very quickly, before we get to both, and this isn't as a serious conversation because it's only 2 games, but this is a number 1 draft pick in Juraj Slafkovsky. And I think, you mentioned it there, the player that he hit from the Detroit Red Wings the other night, Matt Luff, he is done now for 3 months, 10 to 12 weeks. So I just think this is kind of a situation when you see a young player like Slafkovsky, and fantasy wise, yes, it's 2 games. But you also have to, again, it's funny, buyer beware with some of these young players. This was just a boneheaded move from Slafkovsky. Yeah. Now that cost his team. They did end up coming out with the win anyway, but it almost did cost his team. So it's just one of those things that, again, not a lot of fantasy impact. I just wanted to mention it because it is a talking point. His first suspension, just a really dumb play. And now a decent young player is now out serious time. That's just something you don't want to see. I don't think there's any take to be had there, but that's just something I want to mention. You said a returning defenseman. The Boston Bruins have already had the benefit of the early return from Brad Marchand and a solid start from basically that entire lineup, top to bottom. And now, all of a sudden, take a look. Charlie McAvoy is set to return tonight, ahead of schedule as well. I don't know about you, Steele, but if you're taking a look on some, early sprinkles on teams to make the playoffs, the Boston Bruins have got to be right up there at decent odds. I believe they're still at plus 200 to win the division as well. I don't know about you, but he checks a lot of the boxes in the fantasy realm, and you better have your eyes on the waiver wire because I guarantee you that percentage owned is creeping and creeping and creeping if he is even out there still.
Yeah, the percentage owned was probably already above 92, 93% because he was drafted in most fantasy leagues. And look, this is a guy, defenseman, who's jumping back into the lineup with already a strong, structured Bruins team. And again, when he is healthy and he plays a full season, he's getting upwards of 45, 50 points, 160 shots, 160 hits, 85 to 90 blocks as well, maybe even over 100. So he does a little of everything, and he does it so well. And especially like we talked about, looking back on our pre-ranked division rankings, we had the Boston Bruins missing the playoffs. That's not happening anymore. We were completely off the mark on that one.
Way off the mark.
And, the fact that they were able to get Brad Marchand back early, they get McAvoy back early now, this team is going to be deadly, especially in the Atlantic Division. So I'm honestly scared to see every single time the Maple Leafs go up against them.
Charlie McAvoy also in his prime, coming off a career season, 10 goals, 46 assists. How about 155 hits? How about 129 block shots? How about 166 shots on net? He has power play points. Actually, 21 of them last year coming on the power play. He really is a fantasy stud. He fills out those categories. Sidebar, 84% owned in Yahoo leagues, about the same in ESPN, slightly higher.
So he's out there and he's out there in a few leagues then.
If for somehow you are in a league and he is actually available on the waiver wire, drop what you're doing right now. Actually, don't finish the episode and then head over there and do it. Actually, before you do both, smash that subscribe button. Drop us a review. Let us know. We're seeing those reviews. We see the comments. We see the DMs. We appreciate you. We're trying to get better, trying to feed you guys what you need to dominate these leagues and to make some money. Those big-time bets are coming up. I had a cold night the other night, but your boy Steele is still on a heater, so make sure you stay tuned for those picks. McAvoy coming back is huge, Steele. Your boy Aaron Ekblad set to return as well. I want to just quickly talk about that because lastly, I want to mention a couple of goaltenders very quickly. Yeah. But this Aaron Ekblad return just in time for you needing some help on the blue line. And now, speaking of trades yesterday, maybe now you hold on that Mackenzie Weegar trade just to see how Aaron Ekblad does. And you put Nikolai Ehlers and Aaron Ekblad in your lineup. And all of a sudden, you're in a lot better shape. But yeah, he's coming back after an extended absence. He's been almost out 1 month. He has 1 goal in 3 games this season, and I think this is going to be huge for Panthers as well.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be huge. Obviously, I think they're still missing Matthew Tkachuk with one more game on his suspension. Maybe he's coming back. I know he only had 2 games, but
more,
yeah,
yeah.
this is huge for the blue line of for the Florida Panthers, and especially for guys who have him on the fantasy team. I know when we did our draft, I wasn't getting banter thrown at me. I wasn't getting shade thrown at me, but it was a little bit of a reach to take Aaron Ekblad that early on in a draft. And I heard a little bit from you, and we talked about the injury bug that seems to follow a lot of these players around, and he's
Yep.
one of those guys. And it just so happened that he has a groin injury once again, and he's out for the first month. And look, I have high sights for this guy. Like he is a top tier defenseman in this league when he's healthy. It just so happens that he gets injured a frequent amount of times, but when he is in the lineup, he's a real threat offensively and in the defensive zone. And like you talked about, I was looking to bolster up my defensive group. I also have someone on the IR, Nikolai Ehlers, who is potentially coming back or is going to start skating again in the next week. I was trying to get Charlie McAvoy. He wanted Nikolai Ehlers. We couldn't get a deal done. Who knows? We might get a deal done in the next couple of days, but just wanted to throw that out there as well. So I'm happy that Aaron Ekblad and hopefully Nikolai Ehlers are coming back soon.
Yes, sir. And very quickly, lastly, Carolina Hurricanes. We had our friend Michael Amato, recent addition to the Sportsnet fantasy team at sportsnet.ca. Our friend Michael Amato, running goaliepost.com. Check him out on Twitter. He came on this show and said, the track record of Frederik Andersen and Antti Ranta, when healthy, elite combination, but we know that both of them have struggled to stay healthy, both of them, over the past number of years. Antti Ranta, maybe age a factor. Freddie Andersen maybe playing way too many games in Toronto being a factor. But all of a sudden now, Freddie, and it's only day-to-day for Freddie Andersen, it seems, but he highlighted Kochetkov, their rookie starter in the AHL, as an option. I stashed him in my minors squad on my keeper league. Now, all of a sudden, you might be wanting to take a look because we're not even a month deep. He's been called up. Antti Ranta now thrust into action. That's the goalie tidbit number one, Steele. And before we wrap this show with big-time bets, his former team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, now dealing with another. We haven't talked about it, and we know this is a couple of days old, even almost a week old. But Matt Murray is now back at practice, so that's news for Fantasy Cats. Because regardless, if he comes back to the crease for the Toronto Maple Leafs, if Ilya Samsonov is still on the shelf, he's a must-add, in my opinion, because he's going to get thrown out there until he hurts himself again regardless. So I think we should keep an eye on what's happening in Toronto.
I believe Ilya Samsonov is week to week with the knee injury, obviously from that Brad Marchand penalty shot last Saturday. So it looked pretty obviously serious and severe
week to week
for him
with
to
the
leave
knee
the game.
injury.
Week to week. So the fact, and I also read that Matt Murray could be back in action as soon as this weekend as well for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And being the fact that he's only owned at 47% on Yahoo, 46% on ESPN, if he's available, especially now that we're talking about some of these other goalie injuries. Yeah, we talked about the injury bug following Matt Murray, no matter where he goes. And yeah, that's obviously some major concern. But if you need some help in the goalie department, if you have a goalie like Patrick Demko or Jordan Binnington, which I have both on my fantasy team, I would take a shot on a guy like Matt Murray, who's on a pretty strong Maple Leafs team. We know that they start off slow. They get better as the month continues. We saw that so far in the beginning of November. So I would take a shot on Matt Murray if he's available in your league.
We had our meltdown episode where we preached to the Maple Leaf gods. It was responded. They blow a lead the other night against the Vegas Golden Knights. But if you're going to do it against any team, why not the top team in the NHL in the Vegas Golden Knights? They're right there with the New Jersey Devils and Boston Bruins this year. But I would argue that they are the best team. Point-wise, they are. That's my way of selling it to y'all out there. Steele, why don't you sell us on this break? Because I'm coming back with 3 fire big-time bets for all of our listeners out there.
We're coming with the heat here, baby. We're coming with the money. That's what we do for big-time bets. But thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and the follow button. Still trying to get to 700 subs before the new year. We're well on our way there. So thank you so much. We appreciate all the love and support out there. And Flip, if you don't mind, I'd like to start us off with the first pick of the night.
Please.
This one has to hit. It has to. If it doesn't hit, I'm never betting on them again. I've bet on them too many times. in really good situations.
I'm scared.
And nonetheless, I'm taking the Blues again
I knew
on the
it.
money line. I'm
I
taking
knew
the
it.
Blues on the money line. I'm
Oh,
going with a
God.
couple losers for wins on Thursday night. Blues on the money line, minus 150 against the San Jose Sharks. The Sharks are at the bottom of the league alongside the St. Louis Blues, but nonetheless, the Blues just have a better structured team, and we know that they've just been really bad to start with. We know they're a lot better than this. Jordan Binnington, he did have a pretty good game the other day against the Boston Bruins, still lost 3-1, but I'm taking the Blues on the money line, minus 150 for my first pick.
Sometimes you just got to go gut feeling. I'm doing that a little bit tonight, but I'm also going with the old eye test from what I've seen. I alluded to the Vegas Golden Knights. Obviously, they looked really good against the Toronto Maple Leafs at times. The Leafs, you could argue, maybe coughed it up a couple of times there because they also played pretty well against the Knights.
Bad giveaways in the defensive zone.
Exactly. So that was a close game. But what I keep seeing from this Vegas Golden Knights team on the road, especially, we know that perennially they've been a good home team. The Vegas flu going to the strip, This team is getting it done on the road against some good teams. And what impressed me the most about the Golden Knights last night, or the other night against the Maple Leafs, excuse me, is their ability to roll multiple lines that could get it done. And a couple weeks ago, I think it was waiver wire week 2, I said Riley Smith is only owned at 15%. Go out there and take a shot. Riley Smith looked like the third coming of I don't know who, Pat Verbeek out there or somebody good. But I like what I'm seeing from the Vegas Golden Knights. And until they go on a skid, I'm going to keep going back to the well with this team steal. I don't know what you think about that, but the odd is pretty good tonight as well. I got the Golden Knights on the money line, minus 157 against the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres are going to get pumped tonight. I'm calling it. And at 157, that's a pretty good odd for the best team in the NHL. That's my first pick. Give me the Golden Knights on the money line.
Jack Eichel's revenge tour, baby. I told you.
You know it's going to happen. They're going to pump the Sabres
You know he's
tonight.
coming for the Sabres. I'm going to put anytime Jack Eichel goal as well. That's not one of my 3 picks, but that will be one of the picks I put. I do want to say, though, Riley Smith up 14% since last week. He's at 55% owned. He's got 7 goals, 5 assists, 3 on the power play, and he's also got 2 shorthanded goals. So this guy's a dual threat on the special team. So
people pay attention to Monday waiver wires. Let's go.
48 shots on goal, 12 hits, 6 blocks. He puts a ton of shots on net. Him and William Karlsson, Jonathan Marchessault, they've been fantastic with each other. So Riley Smith's been great. He's on my fantasy team in my other league. My second pick of the night, I'm taking the Rangers on the money line, minus 150 against the Detroit Red Wings. They had a tough loss the other day against the New York Islanders, which I think was pretty much stolen away from them on that 4th goal. The refs missed a blatant tripping call right in front of him. 2 seconds later, Anders Lee puts it behind the net, in the net. So I'm going to take the Rangers on the money line against the Detroit Red Wings.
Okay. The Rangers have been this team that looked so good to start, then cold, then won 3 in a row, now cold again. So I'm expecting them to figure it out. They are not this streaky. We know that they are much better than these streaks have shown. So I'm feeling the pick, laying a bit of juice, but that's okay. I need to talk about a player that, is somewhat near and dear to my heart, because one of my first stories that I ever wrote at the Score when I was covering the NHL every single night was about Gabe Vilardi. And Gabe Vilardi is now stepped out in LA. And I know I like talking about the LA Kings steal, but this kid has been very good. And I've had my eye on him since junior because of that connection. He has had some injuries. They have had a poor time trying to get him going with combinations. 108 games in the NHL, 104 28 goals, 24 assists, but man, has he come on strong this year, Steele. In 15 games, 10 goals, 5 assists for 15 points. He's getting minutes. He's got 3 game-winning goals as well. I'm loving the fact that he is also now on that top line with Kempe and Kopitar. I love me that combination. All of those things, and they roll into a matchup against the Chicago Blackhawks, who are starting to allow a lot of goals. Oh, wait 1 second. When I check and pull up the stats, because I love me some stats, sometimes Steele. Goals for this year, sitting in the top 5 in the NHL, tied for 3rd, the LA Kings with 49 goals. Sitting clear in 3rd with goals for 49. Hey, me with the numbers. Anyway, Gabe Vilardi, 3 goals, 1 assist in his last 5 games. The top line opportunity, the Chicago matchup. Give me a Gabe Vilardi anytime point. That's free money. My lock is also very much free money, but hit me with your next pick.
My lock of the night, Flip. I'm going back to a little bit of an underdog here. Another team that's on a big losing streak right now. I'm taking the Ottawa Senators on the money line at plus 150 against the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, I like that
we
pick.
know this team's a lot better. Pierre Dorian even came out and said it. Look, we're playing way better than last year. We're just losing games right now. And I've watched this team very closely over the last week. They're playing really great. At times, they cough up the puck and, create scoring chances in their own zone. They're playing a lot better than last year. They have so much more talent than last year as well. I'm believing in this team to make not a deep playoff run, but at least make the playoffs in a wild card spot. I think they're that good. I know they're on a 6-game losing streak, but that's my lock of the night. Senators on the money line plus 150.
I love the odd as well. I think they're also in some must-win situations given how good the Atlantic Division is around them. If you check out Sen's Twitter, the sky is falling very quickly in the nation's capital, and the offense is there. They're just, they're playing the same kind of way. They seem to be losing the same way every single night. And, the goaltending is letting them down to a certain aspect. 4 goals, averaging 4 or 5 goals, it seems. They should be able to get it done. We will see what happens. Love the lock of the night. You're giving a good plus money odd for your lock of the night. I'm going the opposite. I'm laying a heavy favorite because I feel this one as a free loot pick. I'm also going to be parlaying these 3 selections in addition to betting them singularly. Give me the LA Kings on the money line against the Chicago Blackhawks, minus 260. It's a heavy, heavy odd, people, to be laying. That's why if you're not a degenerate gambler like me, betting a little bit more, sprinkle this into a parlay with Vilardi and the Knights, or even just with the Knights, increase your odds. The Blackhawks are a bad road team, 1-7 in their last 8 on the road, and they only have 4 victories in the last 15 games playing against the LA Kings. The Kings have their number. The Kings are a much, much, much better team. You have John Quick on a heater as well. This has all the makings of a smash job by the LA Kings. I'm too sally to take them on the puck line, though, because they do play a lot of close 1-goal games, and they lost to the Blackhawks earlier this season. Revenge game coming, people. Bank it. It's my lock of the night. Kings on the money line. That's a for sure winner.
Man, every time I think Cal Peterson's going to sneak up and take that blue crease away from Jonathan Quick. He just glove saves, makes a couple of stack the pad saves as well, and he just digs right in and he says, not today. I'm still here. To reiterate that, though, Flip is taking the money line LA Kings against the Chicago Blackhawks for his lock of the night. I'm taking the Senators money line against the New Jersey Devils lock of the night as well. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your next listen, again, please check out Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode once again with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there. Hopefully you're getting some money back in return because we're both on a heater right now. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.